Rugby World Rankings at the conclusion of the Rugby Championship 2024, folks. How have things changed since before the start of the championship and after? We'll go through those plus the Pacific Nations Cup teams as well, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. The most obvious change compared to the start of the tournament is that South Africa, despite going 5 wins and the 1 loss, went into the competition first in the world, get their hands on a couple of trophies, and yet still drop to second in the world. It does seem kind of counterintuitive if you're just looking at how do you win 5, lose 1, and go down. They've dropped below Ireland in the Rugby World Rankings. It's basically just the game they lost was to a team much lower than them, which cost them a bunch of points. New Zealand are actually in a similar position, but we'll get to them. South Africa came into the tournament 93.11, come out 91.77. You don't get many points for beating teams who are ranked below you. And if you're the number 1 team in the world, everyone is below you. And you lose a lot if you lose to teams who are quite far below you. And I think Argentina was 7th in the world at the time when they lost. The Box lost to the Pumas. So, yeah, the Box lost more pointage than they gained throughout the competition, and thus slipped below Ireland. New Zealand, as I mentioned, are in a similar position. New Zealand came in at 3 and also come out at 3 because they didn't slip below anyone. But New Zealand came into the Rugby Championship on 90.37 but finished on 88.70. So New Zealand obviously had a worse record than the Box, but the key one is the home loss to the Pumas. That cost them a lot of points. Obviously, they lost points over in South Africa, but not as many because it was a higher ranked team and away from home. But the home loss for the All Blacks was the kind of killer in the Rugby World Rankings. Argentina are the biggest winner in terms of the Rugby World Rankings. They came in on 81.64. They finish on 84.30. So big win over the Box. When I say big, I just mean kind of historic. That's the first time in a Rugby Championship they've managed to take all 3 scalps. And then the away win over the All Blacks here in New Zealand. Both big points gainers. Obviously, they lost some points to the Wallabies when they lost at home, so they were kind of on the flip side of that coin where you get a pretty significant points drop, but they came into the tournament 7th. They finish 6th, so despite the fact they finished 3rd in the Rugby Championship at the end of the day, you'd still say it was a pretty successful tournament. They won beat all opponents like I mentioned, and then they got themselves into the 6th spot, which in terms of the Rugby World Cup draw will be the most valuable spot in terms of the one that teams around about that area will be looking to target to get that kind of top seed. And then the Aussies, weirdly enough, people always think there's kind of conspiracies about why their team's up or down in the world rankings, but the Wallabies came in 9th, come out 10th, but are actually on more points than they started with. It seems counterintuitive. They came in on 78.96. They go out on 79.32. How did they go up in points when they only won 1 bloody game? Well, same deal, man. They played the Box, who were so far ahead of them. They didn't lose any points over here in New Zealand when they lost to us because we were so far ahead of them. So the Wallabies are in a position where they didn't have that many points to lose. And when they beat the Pumas away, they gained a significant chunk to finish with a kind of net positive. The main reason they are down is because in the Pacific Nations Cup, with Fiji getting a win, Fiji actually managed to pass them because Fiji took some decent points off Japan. So, yeah, the Wallabies come out of the Rugby Championship on more points, but 1 spot lower. Fiji's up, like I mentioned, they won the Pacific Nations Cup. And the other Pacific Nations Cup teams are all pretty much static. Like Japan came in at 14, finish at 14, Samoa 13-13, Tonga 16-16, USA 19-19. Kind of like that. But yeah, Rugby World Rankings will remain static for a short time as we head into the November games. In the women's matches, like New Zealand lost to Ireland recently, and that was also another example of how you can, like one result can just see such a massive points drop. Like New Zealand lost to Ireland, it was unexpected. They were ranked so far above Ireland that they lost, a couple of points, gone from 2nd in the world to 3rd. The English women's team is just on a kind of crazy high in terms of the world rankings. But yeah, if you're ranked higher and you lose games, you drop a lot of points and it becomes harder and harder to get points the higher you get up the world rankings, basically. But yeah, November games are still a little while away. We will sit back and watch some URC, some top 14s and premiership and whatnot, I'm sure. Most of us, maybe some of you guys will take a break from rugby for a month. If you want to see some stuff in China, how about the time I got chased by some girls? That was pretty random. When I was checking out a temple, some girls kind of ran me down. Check that one out. It's 2 cents on tour. Something totally not rugby, but it's this fella in China. So yeah, check that out if you wouldn't mind. I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel, folks. Take care of yourselves, and let us know your thoughts on how fair or not you reckon the rankings are. I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.